All right, thanks for tuning in. This is Josh and John from Entreprenerds Comedy. I'm the host of the Kill Cliff podcast. John, what do we got going on today?
Hey, we have Jonathan Hagerman visiting with us today. Jonathan is a combat vet Marine, got out of the service after a tour in Afghanistan and moved to San Antonio, Texas with his family, decided to get back into mountain bike riding, which he hadn't done in years. Decided, you know what, this is a therapeutic thing. I wonder if other veterans would like it. And now he's turned it into an entire nonprofit that's going nationwide.
Yeah.
So the Dirt Therapy Project, Jonathan Hagerman, we're excited to have him join us today.
Thanks. Let's do this.
Let's get this thing going.
I love the name of your podcast.
Let the boy watch.
It was like every 80s rock video.
Crafting with strawberry milk.
Good luck to me.
If I said that without making eye contact, it would have been way better.
This is our intern, Tyler.
So no one listening yet anyways. This guy sucks. The juice is flowing.
Maybe just whack him across the face with a corn cob.
It's going to go great. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Nice
Hey,
to meet you guys.
Yeah, likewise, man. It's great to connect with you. We've followed your journey with the Dirt Therapy Project for a little while on social media. Josh is a pretty big mountain biking guy, and so we were kind of inspired and pretty pumped to be able to get you on with us today. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, happy to know there's a fellow biker here. That's always good news.
So we've listened to a couple of their other interviews, and we want to talk a little bit about your story. So you're a combat Marine, right?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah. So I was in the Marine Corps from 2009 to 2013. Pretty shortly after getting into the fleet, so I wasn't a grunt or anything like that. I was a utility engineer. Really shortly after getting to the regular fleet, they were asking for people who would volunteer to deploy. And so, of course, you don't join the Marine Corps unless you're willing and eager to deploy. So my hand went up, very recently, newlywed at that point. And so I deployed with CLR 15. Now, almost the entire battalion went to Leatherneck, and that's kind of where they set up shop there as a maintenance shop. And then 8 of us went out to Nole, which is in Sengen. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the district, but we were doing some maintenance out there for 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines.
And you were out and if I read somewhere, you were out in a FOB with 3rd
Yes.
3rd of the 5th, right? And you were out there on some small remote FOB in nowhere, Afghanistan for... Yeah,
middle of nowhere. Heloed in. I mean, all of our supplies it was CDS drops for a long time. MREs, baby wipes, the whole 9 yards. It was a blast.
All of the pleasantries of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And how long were you out there?
I guess it was 7.5 months or so.
Just long enough to get for your wife to appreciate that you raised your hand to go over and do this.
Yeah, just long enough. That's right.
All right. So for people that don't know, can you just give a quick rundown of what Dirt Therapy is, how that came to be, how even your experience in mountain biking before the military, you do military time, and you find an avenue for mountain biking after you get out. If you just give us a quick rundown on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try my best to make it as quick as possible. So I grew up in Utah, and Utah is kind of like the outdoor mecca. And in hindsight, I didn't know how spoiled I was growing up there until I moved somewhere flat. But was real big into mountain biking all through high school. I got a paper route so that I could buy a bike. So in fact, my first bike cost more than my car did to do my paper route. It was kind of one of those situations. Absolutely fell in love with the sport. I love being on 2 wheels.
Did you have a really good mountain bike or a really shitty car?
Yes. Both, it was like a pretty decent mid-range bike. I think it was like $2,000, and I was driving an old Mercury that my uncle had given me. So fell in love with the sport, absolutely loved it. After high school, I ended up going, out of the country for a couple of years. I come back and enlist in the Marine Corps. So basically nearly 10 years goes by from when I graduate high school until I get back on a bike after all of my service, and I'm in school and I've finished my undergraduate degree, and just kind of on a whim, I'm searching Craigslist and I see a bike very similar to that bike that I had in high school, and I went and bought it. And as soon as I got it back out onto the trails, absolutely just fell back in love with the sport. And if there's anybody who's listening who mountain bikes or bikes in general, you know that N+1 is the perfect amount of bikes to have. So I had one and I needed N+1, so I bought another one, right? It was a little bit nicer, a little bit newer, better components. Well, that then meant that I had an extra bike just laying around in the garage. And rather than just let it sit there and collect dust, I started inviting my friends and coworkers out with me. I'm blessed to work with a lot of, prior service. On my team at the time, I had a retired lieutenant colonel, Marine Corps, and I was like, hey, let's go ride mountain bikes. And so he'd come out with me, and that's really where the idea for the program was born, was right here on the trails in San Antonio. I noticed what a change it was making in my life, having that outdoor time, the physical exertion, the enjoyment, the thrill of being on a bike, right? Because getting back into the sport, I wasn't very good at it, so I was crashing a lot, and that's thrilling, right? It's not like being shot at, but it's a thrill to go fast and crash. So, no, but I really enjoyed it, and so I just really wanted to be able to share that with other people. I think there's lots of great programs out there, and I think the path to healing and processing is different for everybody. For me, it was on a bike, and I figured, well, I can't be the only one that helps. And so I wanted to share it. And that's really how the program was born.
Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
So the Dirt Therapy Project then is specifically for veterans, correct? These are people that have served. And is it a way for you guys just to socialize, or using it as a social avenue and as a therapeutic outlet for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's for active duty veterans, anybody who is serving, has served. The mission behind it for me was certainly healing, but there are no prerequisites. If you've worn the uniform or you're wearing the uniform, you're certainly welcome to come out with this. I know a lot of people experience, and I experienced this myself when I separated from the service. You feel lost for a little while, and you kind of feel like you don't really belong anywhere, right? Like for 4 years, I was a Marine. I was in the Marine Corps. I woke up every day, shaved, put on my uniform, and that really became my identity. And then once you leave, they hand you your DD-214, and they're like, okay, bye, bye, Felicia. That's really kind of it.
Yeah.
And so
when do I go to sick call?
Yeah, you feel lost for a little bit, and you flounder. And I guess I kind of have the personality that when I go through experiences and they were tough, I want to make that experience easier or better for the next person. And so the Dirt Therapy Project kind of provides this incubator where people can come learn a new sport, hang out with veterans, veteran talk, be among your tribe. And so it's really been a great vehicle for that.
You mentioned something, and I think it's something funny that I don't know that non-vets can appreciate. And there are people out there in the world who love having a little bit of an adrenaline rush. They like people pick up skydiving, and they, or whatever. They just like lifting weights, or they like whatever, race car, driving race cars. But you said you're not getting. You said something about not getting shot at, but which I think is funny because you're sitting in like a cubicle in like your. You have your Jake at State Farm outfit on, so it's clearly like it's complete like opposing dichotomies, right? And it's interesting you pick it up because I think that's something we all go through as vets, and is that loss of like not just excitement, but just everything changes on a given basis, and there's no filter on anybody, and it's a free forum for. Making jokes about how you look and about your weight and your buddy's weight and his looks and it's just there's absolutely no filter in it, and it's just this great liberating environment, right? So it's interesting that you talk about not just being therapeutic for helping people heal and but also giving them that opportunity to come together and be with like-minded people.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, in the grand scheme of things, there's so few people who serve in the military and then who have gone on a combat deployment. To be able to find people you can relate to, I think is extremely important, because I could come home and tell my wife what it was like in Sangin, but I mean, it's just words at that point. But to be able to tell somebody who's also been there or been in a similar environment, they have that understanding. They know what it was like to go through that. So to have that kind of support and people you can talk to, I think is real healthy.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I've gone, in doing research for this, we looked at some of, a lot of your social stuff. Would you say you've been injured more on the bike or while in the Marines?
Yeah, so definitely on the bike.
Yeah.
I think some of it was residual, a lifetime. I played contact sports in high school, and obviously I rode in high school, so I crashed. And I think a lot of that just kind of caught up to me. You may be referencing my shoulder rebuild that I had last year. I think that was kind of a culmination of many years of abuse, and then a terrific bike crash on top of that. Yeah, and then I broke my ankle this year, and that was just kind of that was a freak accident. Accidents happen.
It's funny. You realize, actually, when you said, I grew up and I didn't realize how spoiled I was, is because of where you lived.
Yeah.
You grow up, and even in just mountain biking or cycling or doing a sport like that as a kid, when you just grow up doing it, you don't realize how therapeutic it is until you're an adult and you get done with something like a long ride or a run or something, and you're in nature, and you realize, like, holy shit, man, this is what I need. Like, that sense of just a clear mind, relaxation is something you can't really achieve, and you didn't realize how good you had it when you could do that all the time.
Yeah.
Especially now once you're an adult and have kids and a job, and those times are far and few between.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think people really underestimate the power, the healing power of nature. I know that sounds kind of like granola and tree huggy.
No,
That's
true,
really not
true,
who I am. But being outside has an extremely therapeutic, this benefit to just being in nature. And so if you can do it on a bike, all the better.
Right. Do it while you're getting some exercise, get a little
That's right.
speed, a little adrenaline, just some laughter.
Yeah.
So Dirt Therapy Project is now, I mean, I know you had mentioned somewhere else that you're now looking at chapters in Denver and in South Carolina, getting ready to open up. So, we're going, it has expanded to, ostensibly going to be a larger program than just what you had in San Antonio. Walk us backwards a little bit because it doesn't happen overnight, right? Like in anybody who's in the entrepreneurial space, and I know you got your, MBA, so you have a business background, but starting a nonprofit, if you've never done it, and I haven't, you haven't started any nonprofits. You haven't told me about it.
No, no, they're all for profit.
Nice.
They just don't make any money.
Kind of walk us backwards, like so it starts out you and a colleague of yours, retired Colonel Marine, sir, do you want to go for a ride, sir? Right, and you guys start out from this ride, and then. Yeah. You get an extra bike, and then how do you get from there to, like, now you're opening up national chapters? And again, the part of this podcast, what we love doing is bringing out some of the funny stories, how we stumble along the way, and it's really not stories about just failures. It's more stories about perseverance and how we persevere through the obstacles that we faced. So kind of walk us back through, like, this thing starts to grow legs, and then are you like, hey, honey, I think we're onto something?
Yeah. Wow. I mean. So the program is almost 2 years old. We're not quite 2, in March will be our second anniversary. And the answer to your question is going to be underwhelming. It's much more stumbling than it has been running or sprinting. Adventure learning, I think, is the best term that I have to describe how we've gotten to where we are. And really, if you boil it down to its essence, I think just being a Marine and having that perseverance, that attitude that you will do it, is really the only reason we exist. So if and when either of you decide to start a nonprofit, you'll recognize that the paperwork is overwhelming. And so that comes back to the saying, the only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And that's true. So I got the idea for this program, and my wife and I talked about it. And then from there, it was just one small thing every day towards our formation. We raised some money so that I could hire a legal team to help us with our incorporation paperwork. That's a pretty big undertaking if you're going to do it by yourself. Filing with the IRS, filing with the state, getting our bylaws drafted. So all that's kind of the boring stuff. And really, the growth of the program surprises me, because 2 years ago when I was thinking about this, it never was going to be this big, and it never was going to have this type of reach. So in my mind, when I started this, I was like, okay, my goal is to have, we'll say 5 bikes, 5 sets of gear, and just to be able to loan those out and do rides right here in San Antonio on a monthly basis. And very quickly that became, to the point where now we have 10 bikes and we're doing out of state trips, and we're doing multi-day trips to Big Bend or Palo Duro or Bentonville, Arkansas, to where we are now, where we have ambassadors in Denver and in North Carolina. And that kind of stuff, like, I wish it was attributed to me, but it's just kind of been this perfect chaos that's evolved itself.
You mentioned raising money, and I think I either read on LinkedIn or on one of your posts, or you mentioned somewhere you raised about $4,000 from family.
Yes. So, I mean, that's incredible, right? And I think if you start a business or you're in the business world and you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're familiar with the term angel investors, who are people that invest in your company with no expectation of return, whether you make it or not. I don't even know what to call them in the nonprofit sense, because there will be no return other than the good feeling they get from donating money to our program. So, I mean, without the love and appreciation and support of family, we would never have gotten to where we are.
Raising $4,000, unless everybody's got that like one rich uncle who just drops like 10 G's, like it's nobody's, like it's no problem. But raising $4,000 from friends and family, just being like, hey, I want you to donate to this idea that I have. We're gonna ride mountain bikes. I mean, that's not an easy thing, right? So, how did you approach that? How did you just, inspire folks to give? Or, I mean, did you do you empty your kids' piggy banks? What do you?
Yeah, just smashed them right open, took all their,
You're donating.
Cashed out their 529s.
Colleges for chumps.
No, so really LinkedIn has been an extremely powerful platform through our whole growth and development. And once I decided that we were going to start this program and that we needed some money to, like I said, pay our legal team, I just announced it on that platform. And it was an overwhelming response to what we were doing. I think people had, belief in the outdoor healing aspect. I think they had a belief in maybe my ability or their perceived ability to run this program. And it's a pretty unique idea. There's veteran outdoor programs and adventure programs. I think when you get specific like we have and you kind of narrow it down to one sport, it makes people reassess what's going on in our space. So maybe it was just the perfect storm. I don't know.
What's the response been from the mountain bike community specifically, whether that be other like bike companies, other riders? Because I grew up riding mountain bikes.
Yep.
And where I was, the mountain bike community and the military community, they didn't always run in the same circles.
Yeah.
So what's been the response so far from the cycling community?
Well, I'm excited you asked that because I have something exciting to tell you, but I'll tell you what our experience was to begin with.
Okay.
So starting out, I think the cycling community in general suffers a lot from maybe we'll call it beggar's fatigue, people constantly reaching out and asking for deals or sponsorships. And I realized that very quickly that they weren't on our side at that point in time.
Right.
So very early on, all of our stuff was purchased almost at retail cost. Like I'd wait for sales and, some bigger online retailers like Backcountry would give us a, 10 or 15% discount on what we were doing. But they really didn't want to be involved with what we're doing. So fast forward until like 2 weeks ago, the bike company Specialized has come on as a sponsor for our program.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, mind blowing, right? Like who in their right mind would have thought that would be happening, especially here in San Antonio? But Specialized has come on, going to be like an ambassador for the brand. So we're currently moving all of the equipment we have. We're going to bring on a fleet of Specialized bikes.
So
they have
cool.
it work super cool through this demo fleet program. So they give us the bikes, we have them for 10 months and then, sell them at the end of that 10 months. So we're constantly refreshing the equipment we have, always have the latest and greatest for our riders. And just, that type of support from a company is amazing. It's
That's really good. I knew something was up when I saw your Pivot was being sold. That
Yeah.
I know it's a great bike, but kudos to Specialized, man. It's great. Such a big company too. I mean, it's in the cycling world, you don't get any bigger, and for them to step in and do something like that is really admirable and cool.
Yeah, we're always kind of amazed at the shift in the corporate world to having a corporate social responsibility and big companies looking for that outlet where they can give back and their employees can get behind it, and that's really cool to have such a recognized brand name jump on your wagon, man. That's really cool to have you guys partner up. That says
amazing.
something about what you've done.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So you started to talk about how this thing grew. How did that actually happen? Like, what was the nuts and bolts? Like, how did this thing in Colorado start? How did it start in North Carolina?
Yeah, and what are you doing? Like you mentioned going on these trips. Like, how did it start? And then sort of give us some of the meat of you mentioned just going on trips. You obviously it's been more than you've taken a bunch of vets, and so kind of tell us how you started and what's happened.
Yeah, so our first multi-day trip consisted of me and 2 other people. So that's when our program was in its infancy. If you're familiar with Bentonville, Arkansas, it's the home of Walmart. But the Walton family has built just insane trails out there. They've invested millions and millions of dollars in these ultra manicured, just super flowy trails. So we went out to check it out, and that really kind of gave me the fuel to push the program forward, not only because I loved the experience, but when I had these other riders out there, their testimonials, their appreciation, just really, I loved it. And it really helped me move the program to the next level. So from there, last year we had our first big multi-day event. So we did Big Bend National Park. We had 15 people out there. Spent 2 days riding and hiking and soaking in the hot pots. So had a great time. How we've grown to there is just, constant fundraising and awareness and just support from our local community. The way that our chapters have been started, well, they're technically not chapters yet. So we're calling them ambassadors in these areas. And then they're using our social media platform to organize their own rides and events. But it was through the power of social media, Instagram, Facebook. Those are kind of my preferred channels. And just building relationships with other riders. You mentioned earlier that the military community and the bike community, there's not a lot of crossover, but for those people who are military and are bike riders, they're drawn to this program almost immediately because it makes sense to them. And so whether those people are in San Antonio or in Denver, we kind of have this baseline relationship already built by the time they reach out to us, and we can continue talking. And it just progressed very naturally. These people expressed interest in helping with the program. And I think even the guy in Denver, Travis, I'm pretty sure he broached the subject of running something up there. And so, that just kind of happened on its own. It was beautiful.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any other ambassador or areas that you guys are eyeing right now? Anybody else looking to start their own out?
No, so we're going to see how this works for the next little while. The program is growing quickly, and as you alluded to earlier, trying to balance this with a full-time career and family obligations. Right. I want to make sure that we're building that foundation appropriately and correctly. My biggest fear is that we grow too fast and that the foundation we have is unstable and something brings this whole thing crumbling down. I think that'd be a tragedy. So I want to be very intentional on how and where we expand. So you'll probably won't see any more expansion for the next year, I would say. Just want to
you had mentioned somewhere, and it's kind of a good segue because you'd mentioned growing and scaling at a level where you can manage that scale. Yeah. I heard you mention in another interview or on LinkedIn or somewhere that you said if in 5 years, if you're not doing this full time, then you kind of felt like that maybe you had done something wrong in managing it. One, that's it's such a great veteran story, a veteran entrepreneur story, finding their passion and then turning it into something that they can do full time. What do you need to get there, and what? I mean, because your wife she co-founded and co-manages the foundation, right?
Yep.
Or nonprofit. So go ahead.
Yeah, so what we need to get there is if everybody listening can just refer their rich uncle our way, I think we'll just be set, an easy day after that. No, I mean, to get there is going to take a lot of work. A lot of it's been done, but constant streams of income or revenue are necessary for a program like this to survive. And at this point, we're very, very far away from me being able to quit my day job. I've never taken a cent in payment or anything like that from this program. 100% of everything we do goes back into the operations and equipment. So to be able to replace a salary is going to take a lot of work. What we're doing to get there is just continuing to spread the word, bring awareness to what we're doing. I need to really educate myself in grant writing, and there's a couple really interesting bills going on, and I'm sure y'all are familiar with Josh Jesperson and his Outdoor Recovery Act that he's kind of, taking the point on. And Josh and I have had some really good talks, but I think if that can go through and we get that bill passed and programs like this become an option for the VA to send people, and then maybe we partner with the VA as, an outdoor recreational program. That would probably help sustain our adventures.
Right, you actually become part of the PTSD or just a transition and recovery component where they actually you're a preferred service provider. That would be gangbusters, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people underestimate what the transition is like when they leave the military. Like I said earlier, it's very, very abrupt, and it happens very quickly, and you'll think it'll just be a Band-Aid, but you rip that Band-Aid off, and then that sting kind of lasts for longer than you thought it would.
It's funny. John and I, like we said, are both vets, and we've had quite a few vets on, and specifically, last probably 3 or 4, that transition from military to civilian life has come up, and every time the story's been the same. Usually, I know for me, mine was rough. I had zero planning beforehand, had a really rough transition. John was a wedding DJ for a bit, but that I do think that is a underestimated, or at least not talked about enough, issue for vets. You talk about their time in, what happened while they're in, but having that guidance coming out, or at least having an avenue to talk to other people and do things like your organization is doing is a super beneficial thing.
We got to ask, because it's almost become a recurring theme in every podcast. What was your job you did when you went? Did you go right to college? What did you do when you got out? Everybody had to have like some sort of job where they go, I was in combat 6 months ago, and now how did I get here? Yeah,
so mine was I came out and went straight into my undergraduate program. And my really big aha moment is I was sitting there. It's my first real college class. I had did some, tuition assistance for my associate's degree, but I'm sitting in a university for my bachelor's degree, summer class, and I'm sitting there as a sergeant of the Marine Corps, and these 18, 19-year-old kids are walking into class late, and they're just talking the whole time. And like, it took everything in my being not to stand up and just
be a Marine,
be very unpolite. Right. And so that was kind of the start of, wow, what's going on here? And then it was a series of odd jobs. For a little while I was doing like day laboring as a pressure washer. My friend's grandpa owned this pressure washing company. They'd clean out HVAC systems at HEB. When I finished my undergrad, my first job was at Rudy's Barbecue. So here I am, yes, combat Marine. I've got a bachelor's degree, and now I've got my first job in food and I'm a new father. It just really humbling.
Yeah. Right? And there's nothing wrong with it, right? Nothing wrong with waiting tables in the food service, but it's just not where you think you're going to be when you leave the Corps, when you leave the service. You're like, oh man, I got this. Yeah, and it's always, we laugh because everybody that's come on, and we've had some really super successful people, but they've all laughed at that first job where they really get, they hit the reset button on that humility, and it's carried with them ever since then, right?
Yeah. I think the tenacity that you develop in the service really becomes a benefit or a tool in your toolbox when you get out. Because for any of us, it's, you don't care what it takes to make it. You're going to do anything to provide for your family, provide for yourself. And so whatever the job may be, like, who cares, right? You're going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyone who's in the mountain biking community knows that President Bush is huge into mountain biking, has been for quite a long time. You got a chance to do a ride with him. Can you talk about that real quick?
Yeah, I'd love to. So the Bush W100K, it's a program that they do every other year. Go out to his ranch, and over 2 days you ride. And typically they select between 15 and 18 participants. So I go through this whole selection process. You have to get and letters of recall to get cleared for it. And I get notified that, hey, you've been selected. You're going to come up to the ranch and you're going to ride. And for me, that was just the ultimate validation, right? Like, this is going to be so cool. I'm going to go ride bikes with President Bush. Well, 2 weeks later.
And this is only in the last year or something, right? Because you've only been in business
November. This was in November.
This past November.
Yeah.
Of 19.
Months ago. Yeah, 4 months ago. So I get the notification. You're selected. Here's the itinerary. This is the agenda. I'm at an outdoor expo that I was invited to, and I have a booth set up. It's 3 p.m. slow foot traffic. I'm like, I'm just going to jump on a bike and goof around. So I get on one of my bikes, I'm goofing around, and I start riding wheelies across this really big open field. And, I was on the bike for 3 minutes maybe, and I lose one of my wheelies, and the brakes are a little bit squishy. So I put my foot down to kind of catch myself, and then my fibula snaps right there. And just that feeling, right? Like, I didn't even care that my ankle was broken, but immediately knowing that I wasn't going to be able to ride was the most soul crushing, hard blow ever. So long story short, I did not get to ride. They were very gracious and invited us up for lunch. So I got to meet the president and his wife and all the amazing people up there that run that program. And I hopefully, maybe I'll get a ticket to go the next time.
And you did not get to ride with him, but you got to hang out with him, right?
I got to watch him ride. So
was that the post where you're in the hospital, you take a picture of your foot or ankle, and you said, who's going to tell my wife? Was that the line?
Yeah.
Who's going to tell my wife? Go. That's great.
Yeah. So in the last several years, I've occasionally had to call her and be like, hey, I'm okay, but I'm going to the emergency room. That's kind of my briefing, right? It's okay, I'm fine, but I'm going to the ER. And so this time I didn't even want to call her and let her know because I knew it was bad. So I was looking for volunteers to make that notification for me.
And when you told, I think I saw it somewhere else as well. When you told the president that you were supposed to ride with him, he was like, oh, well, let me know when you can ride.
Yeah. He was super cool.
Hit him up on those DMs.
Yeah, we'll see. So, luckily I'm in touch with them, and I know people on that organization now. So hopefully I'll get out there soon.
Yeah. Be careful what you wish for, right? He's a hardcore rider.
Yeah, he's actually really, he goes out with him quite a bit. So it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So small world, one of my coworkers here, another former Marine who then did Secret Service after the Marine Corps, was on his personal security detail back when he was an extremely good mountain biker. And he said that the president's favorite thing to do was get his guys on bikes and then just lose them, total smoke check.
Smoke them.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to get involved with the Dirt Therapy project, right now I know it's more going to be localized in North Carolina, Colorado, and San Antonio. But how do they go about checking it out and seeing what you guys got going on?
Yeah, so absolutely reach out to us via social media. I'm on LinkedIn. My name's Jonathan Hagerman. Our newly designed website is just tdtp.org. Instagram is Dirt Therapy Project. So there's lots of options. Just kind of pick your poison and reach out, and I'll get back to you.
And you guys are big on the gram there at the Dirt Therapy Project on Instagram, right?
That's right.
Awesome.
Awesome. Hey, Jonathan, thank you so much for your time, man. Appreciate you joining us. And again, it's on Instagram. It's The Dirt Therapy Project. Check them out. They're doing great things for veterans out there. Jonathan, thanks so much.
Yeah, real quick, John, hey, do you want to give a shout out to any other companies other than Specialized that are supporting you guys and what you're doing?
Absolutely. Thanks for that. So obviously Killcliff has been huge, and they're always going to hold a very special place in my heart because they were the first company who offered any type of support for us.
Cool.
So Killcliff sending us product for all of our riders. It's real easy for me. I just get on the horn. Hey, we're running out of this. And a few days later, boxes and boxes show up. And so I really sincerely appreciate it. Our riders love it. They appreciate it. So, major kudos to Killcliff as well, John and all those guys.
Cool.
Awesome. Hey, Jonathan, thanks again for your time, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, bud.
You got it.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate you guys checking us out. Thanks again to Jonathan Hagerman from the Dirt Therapy Project. Awesome story, amazing cause. Make sure to support him and what he's doing. Some good things coming from it.
Yeah, check him out on The Dirt Therapy Project on Instagram. And yeah.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.